But you didn't hear me say.
And the alligators. You go a little further north and you get bear.
Yes, here we're not too bad. We have foxes. We do have a few snakes.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any really poisonous varieties. The one thing that was interesting about those that I heard is that people who get snakes who are really into them will set them free when they get too big and they can't control them anymore.
Oh, really?
So they'll be like
So that's how if we get any
that are like dangerous.
nasty
Yeah.
ones. Yes.
All I know is I stay away from them. I don't even try to identify them.
I work outside. I do surveys in people's yards and in the woods and stuff. And every once in a while, like snakes. And scare the heck out of them. They're more scared of me than they're not dangerous.
Yep.
I prefer not to.
I hear you.
My son has a snake. He lives in Vermont, and he wanted a pet. But he goes to school and he wanted something that didn't so he bought a snake. And it's in a huge enclosure, and the snake is absolutely gross until I go to visit. And he lives in this tiny apartment, so I sleep on an air mattress in the living room.
And this,
With the snake.
it won't get out.
I double check the lock.
Yeah, I didn't get one. I won't ask her. Yeah, we have to pay for the copies of them, so.
Oh, that's right. You work with
Yeah, it's an interesting group. Hey, how are you?
Like 2 emails, maybe 3. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm the same way. I'm always backed up on things.
I've been meaning to, and I started drafting the little blurb for the Facebook post you mentioned you invited me to do. So that's very nice. I will, once I finish it, I'll send it to you.
Awesome. Sure.
Yeah.
Whatever you send me. Yeah. If you guys are having meetings or whatever, I haven't been checking your site either. But it was awesome. Yeah, it looks really good. Yeah. I think I have the second page. Yeah. They've been known to be changed after I approve them sometimes. Yeah, interesting. Yes.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah, it's great. So we're supposed to be setting up more events like that. We had somebody who was into reenactment type stuff, and they wanted to do a tavern evening where they have like maybe drinking games or adult style games that they would have played back then. Because like we don't even think about that as being cool or anything, and they said people really love it.
Yeah.
So alcohol or not, whether we decide to go that route, but just the idea of what a tavern game would have been like.
Right.
And then they're all into dressing in that kind of period stuff. And I don't do that. Some people really, really love it.
They're nice to have that little chat.
We have an interesting time there because we don't have any parking spots over at the Tweeds complex. So if there's a soccer game there, it takes up the entire parking lot. Because they'll have 4 games going on over there, and with all the spectators and everything, it jams up that whole lot. there's only maybe 20 parking spots there, and then we have some access to the second level parking garage, but still we don't have reserved spots really.
So where should I park?
Oh, so this is going to be here.
Oh, this is at the fire hall.
That's here, yeah.
Okay.
So the parking will be fine here for this event. But in the future, when we do things over there, we have the two buildings. We have a little museum and then the Tweeds Tavern. And other than having small tours of the building, if we plan something months in advance, we still don't know who's using the parking lot then. So
now, who does Hack own the parking lot?
It's really interesting. It's a DelDOT park. It's the only park that DelDOT owns. DelDOT was going to make a substation there, and that fell through. And at the same time, they rented out the property to the Hack Center, which is all for profit. And people had a huge issue with that for a good reason.
Is this Swift Park?
This is Tweeds Park.
Tweeds Park.
Yeah, right across from the
Gotcha.
Lantana Square. So there was the old tavern right across the street, and it was deteriorating. So they made an agreement that in order to build that, they would have to move that building and fix it up,
Gotcha.
which they did.
So, I'm sorry, so does Hack still just lease the
So Hack, I believe, is leasing it, and then we have kind of a weird 99-year lease where we're responsible for maintaining the buildings, and as long as we do, we can have access to them and use them as we want.
So who owns the parking? Does Hack lease
So
the park?
DelDOT owns the whole park. It's a DelDOT park.
So
So
even
it's
the parking lot?
the parking lot's.
two-story parking lot?
I'm not sure on that.
So
And
I was
that,
going to say,
that needed to be redone already. They kind of, thank you. They had issues with that and needed redoing, but I'm not sure who owns that. I think that might have been DelDOT that had to pay the bill to fix it. But I'm not sure what their agreements are. So we can't reserve it. So yeah, like the county park rules and state park rules don't apply because it's not a county or a state park. It's really strange. Yeah.
kind of like you.
Who's not?
And Bill, would you lead us off in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. What a gorgeous night it is outside. We can get through this quickly. Everyone had a chance to look over the minutes that Tina had emailed out?
Yes.
Any changes, corrections?
Yes. Under the, I don't know whether you really meant that was raised or you meant it as raised.
No, raised, I think, with being raised,
Like
demolished.
flat.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether they were going up to the three stories.
Yeah, so we'll change raised and R-A-I-S-D to R-A-Z-E-D under Wells Fargo.
Okay.
Spell check is a wonderful thing.
Yes.
Auto correct.
State word. Correct.
All right. Any other changes or grammatical Microsoft whoops? Seeing none, all in favor to accept it as presented, say aye. Those opposed? Okay. Thank you, everyone. All right, Joe.
If anybody.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say, we have a substitute secretary tonight, so talk slowly.
That's right. So if you didn't receive an email copy, please let me know so we can have the right email address. So it's always a challenge.
Yeah, sometimes the emails bounce back, or I hit the wrong finger when I do it, that's usually me. Pepcat, problem exists between keyboard and chair, that's a technical term. If you've got IT people pick on you. Joe, you wanna give us the financial update?
Absolutely, thanks, Mark. So as of the end of April, cash balance was $3,637.26. We did pay the Delaware franchise tax for 2024, which is $25. And pardon? No, it was from a couple months ago. This is year to date. This is not just April. We got one payment of interest. So we're rolling in the bucket.
Making the big dollars. And by the way, we don't even bother looking because WISFIS donates nicely to the 4th of July, so we're happy to keep our paltry number of funds at WISFIS because they always get a very nice donation to help the 4th of July.
Have to have a lot of money in the bank to earn that much interest.
We've never covered it, so. All right, any questions on the treasurer's report? Seeing none, motion to accept as presented. Anybody throw their hand up? Second? All in favor say aye. Those opposed? All right. I think Joe was saying he was gonna work on trying to figure out, because we're always off a half year, because our fiscal year starts in May? July?
No,
No.
no, for us, it's June to June.
Yeah, it's going June to May, can't go June to June.
Alright.
Goes June 1st and ends May 31st, so we're gonna probably either correct it to a calendar year, we can change the fiscal year, whatever the finance guy wants to do for bookkeeping purposes to straighten it out. That way we'll be giving our dues for the year that we're in rather than halfway in. And everyone's like, I already paid him for 25. No, it's just because you paid him in January, you were paying for last year. But he'll figure that out over the summer. Okay, I see
Thank you for
Councilwoman.
adding that, Mark. Appreciate that.
I remember you said something, so I thought I might as well do it while I remember. I see Janet's back from all the fun and frivolity of travels and working with the county council. Weren't you gone last month somewhere
No,
fun?
I was here last month.
Was it?
I was gone the month before,
Okay.
and I'm gonna be gone the next month. I'm just kidding.
All right, Janet, why don't you take it away? Tell us what's going on with the county.
Okay, I don't have a whole lot of county things. I wish that Mike was here, or Laura, or Krista, or Sakola, or somebody, so we could talk about some of these things. So, and I think I may have touched on some of this last time. So, you know, we have to have marijuana outlets. We in the county went through and we did all of our due diligence, and we made the places where marijuana outlets can go very similar to where alcohol outlets can go, retail outlets. Because in the state code, they're both under the same chapter. So we felt that it wouldn't be arbitrary and capricious if we made everything standard within that chapter of the state code. So the state decided that they didn't like how Sussex County was doing it. So they now have gone back and they are trying to pass a bill that says we have to follow their law instead of us having our own, which basically is taking land use decisions away from us, but we're gonna have to enforce them. We went with like 1,000 feet, which I know still isn't a lot, but 1,000 feet from, you know, schools, churches, playgrounds, libraries, parks, that kind of thing. They want it down to 500 feet away from those things. And as far as I'm concerned, 500 feet, I mean, I can probably walk across the parking lot and hit 500 feet. So what's the sense in having something if it's that low? Just let it go wherever. So we are trying to work on that. And the only thing that they're keeping, is I think it has to be 1,000 feet from another marijuana outlet. So we will see where that goes. If you have questions about that, it is Senate Bill 75. You certainly can go online and look it up and talk to our senator and our rep and ask them to vote against it if it's something that you don't like. House Bill 135, they are asking, and it hasn't passed, it's only in committee, they're asking in order to try to get the counties to put in more homeless facilities. They are basically saying that anybody that's homeless can do any life-sustaining activities in public as long as they don't obstruct people walking down the sidewalk or walking into a store or driving down the road. So they have to give, the police have to give them, we all have to give them the same protection for their property that they store in the public places, which also means that the police can't do search and seizure on any of those goods. So I find this a little strange. I find that if you want us to do more homeless facilities, how about we figure out a program? How about we figure out a revenue stream? How about if we figure out who can do that? The county, this county, has the Hope Center. We have done the Hope Center since the beginning of CARES. It's a constant revolving, constantly revolving. We are now putting in rooms for veterans. And so they will be able to stay for a certain amount of time, and all the services are on site. So we've got Christiana Hospital has 2 floors, we have all of the social services people there, we have nonprofits that are there. These people are fed every night through nonprofits, through churches. But in my mind, as I read this, and if you go through and read it, you may not think of it as the same as I am, but if they come and park their car or their RV on a public street, as long as they're not blocking traffic, we can't ask them to leave. So I'm envisioning that they could come and park in front of any of our houses. They're state maintained roads, they're public roads, and nobody would be able to ask them to leave for an indefinite amount of time.
Or common open space areas that every neighborhood has to have.
Well, they can set, like on the park, if it's 7 to, or dawn to dusk, they could ask them to leave at dusk, but the rules have to be exactly the same for somebody that is not homeless. So if they can't stay in a park, then what are they gonna do, park in a library parking lot?
I'm thinking our open space in neighborhoods, like
Sure.
I have
Right.
5.5 acres of
Right.
wide open space with trees and a stream,
Right,
and it's considered under the county back when Gordon 2.0 came back. They
Right.
renamed them like the neighborhood park, but it's not under the county park rules, so it's occupied, you can go in
Right.
there anytime.
right, so if it's any public, open space, parking lot, whatever, and all of our roads are public. If you happen to live on a private road, but
Isn't that like a taking? I mean, it sounds like it's what do they call it, adverse possession, where somebody's getting more than anyone else is allowed to have for the same public asset?
So, but if I'm not homeless.
you
and-
can't do that.
And I park in front of your house and I sleep in my car, I can't do that.
Oh,
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's late enough in the session that I don't envision that this is gonna get through the House and the Senate, but it will just carry through to next year because we are, legislative session is 2 years in a row. It's just between each election cycle. But I think that's something to watch and comment on if it's something that you don't believe
35?
should be happening.
135?
House Bill 135, yes.
They've already done 135 bills this year.
Who's the
Yes.
sponsor of that?
I don't remember.
No.
I think it's one of the Kent County guys.
Ask a clarifying question?
Pardon?
You mentioned the part that at the beginning, you said the goal of this legislation sort of has the goal of trying to get counties to do more on constructing or opening homeless facilities. I don't
Yes.
see what the can you clarify like what the connection is between this bill and that goal?
No. I can't.
Is it
I mean, if
outlined
they-
in the summary of the bill? Should I just read that?
You can read the bill. It's fairly extensive, but
Okay.
I mean,
It
they
just
say
sounds confusing to me, the connection.
well, it is to me too. And if you read just the synopsis, it will say the purpose of this is to get the counties to move along and do more homeless shelters. I understand that we don't have enough homeless shelters, but there has to be a way to incentivize the counties to do that. Counties don't normally do homeless shelters. That's a state issue. Health and Human Services is a state issue. So we see more and more that this General Assembly is trying to send everything over to the county. And we don't have the revenue to do that. I mean, if you look at your tax bill and you look at the percentage that we charge you versus the percentage that the state charges you for school tax, we're about 20% of your bill. So, yes,
So this bill, you said it was supposed to be, I guess, kind of in conjunction with more homeless or services for the unhoused. Is there a House bill set up for that? I mean, has there been something introduced that would address that issue?
No.
Oh,
like
interesting.
something introduced that would say, hey, we're gonna partner with you, all of you counties, and if you build X number of,
Or
have X
anything,
number
really.
of rooms, you'll have some incentive. No,
Oh, interesting.
I know.
Have there been any in the past that you have liked, or what do you see as the county's role, if any, in helping with the
We overstepped our lane when
Spent
we,
$92 million buying a former hotel.
when we bought the, right, when we bought the
Shared.
hotel. And, I mean, that was the beginning of COVID, and understanding that a lot of the overnight shelters had closed because of contamination, you know, spreading COVID. We opened that hotel in 2 weeks,
Yeah, they
from
did.
the day we bought it,
To
and
be
it
blunt, you
was,
guys did a
it was
fantastic
Christmas
job.
and we
considering.
have, right, and we have evolved it ever since. Bringing on more partners, creating more space, identifying certain spaces for certain people because they might need more care or, you know, specialized care than others. I mean, if you go, they will take you on a tour, and it's interesting to see what they've done. You know, they have a little library, right, or I'm gonna call it a store, but it's not really a store, where they've got books for kids and they've got toys for kids, and those kids can borrow that stuff and take it to their rooms. Lots of little kids in these places, and the goal, Carrie Casey is our manager of the department, and she has worked with the federal government, and she knows her way around all of the federal grants and the money, so she does very, very well. I mean, these people that have worked there are very dedicated. They are 24/7. You know, the people that live there need the services 24/7. So we can't say, well, I'm a 9 to 5, you know, goodbye. We have to make sure that they're fed and that, you know, everything is secured and they're comfortable and nothing breaks in their rooms. I mean, it's like running a hotel, which is something that none of us had any experience in. But I just think if that's the reason for this bill, I'm not getting it.
Well, and there's another one that's out there that came up, SB 87, I think it was. And that's the one where they would allow any ADU on any residential property.
Yes.
That bill was so poorly written.
Well, it's still floating around
Yeah.
down there. And our land use department has talked to them, and we have an ADU bill. It's a certain acreage that you can build it on, and you can have one, and the owner of the property has to live on the property. Whether they live in the ADU and rent out their house, or their kids live in their house and they live on the ADU, you know, whatever. We have had that in Newcastle County for over 20 years. We put it, when it first came out, they put a cap on it, and because that, you know, people thought, oh my God, our neighborhoods are gonna be destroyed. So they put a cap on it, and probably 8 years ago, we were up to that cap, and we've never had a complaint about an ADU. So we raised the cap, but you can't just say you don't have to create an extra parking space. It's not limited to the number of people that can live in it. It's
And they're
not,
rental, unrelated to any of the owners, which the
right,
county ADU has to have some
You have-
familial relationship.
yes.
It's not
Because
an income position,
like
but this
Verbo,
thing,
right, like
Build
Verbo
Ready Road,
houses are
it's
not
nothing but a-
allowed.
I already figured it out. I went on Rick Jensen and he goes, he used to be a real estate investor. He said, I'm gonna buy a house and put in 1 or 2 ADUs because there's no limit as long as I have room. I said, Rick, you're thinking it wrong. Buy a house with 5 acres and put in 25 to 30 because
Right,
there's no cap.
right. There's no cap on the state bill. We have a cap. It's 1 per property. And I think the property has to be at least a half an acre.
It has to have a certain zoning classification,
Yeah.
NC 21 or higher.
Yeah.
The ones up in, I call it Chateau Country, they can have larger ones detached because they have 2 acre lots.
And some of them do because they have gatehouses and, you know, servants' quarters from years ago that they can rent out if they wish
But I
to.
wanted to let everyone know that I did go on the radio show because when I heard this and read it, it was so poorly crafted that it would have usurped what the county was doing. And Hockessin, people don't know this, Janet has been around for a while in the county council. We've lived through every version of affordable housing, workforce housing, market-based housing, whatever you want to call it by any name or genre. And there's only one place in all of Delaware and all of Newcastle County that's ever had every version of the county's affordable housing plans
right.
built. And it's Hockessin.
And we were the first.
And we were the first, and we've had every one of them, and
Right.
we've shown them. It's not a racial thing, it's not a economic thing, it's about planning. And the first ones were crafted by people that had districts where they couldn't even build one. I remember I had my little phone with Jay Street, because he's like, I said, how many have you done in your district, Jay? 0. Same thing, Penrose. They've done 0 where they need them, because they didn't think of how to convert buildings into mini apartments, which they could have done.
Right, and they're getting better at that.
And we have whole developments where they're rentals. That was the one thing, because remember the first one? You had to hold it 17 years. You buy your most expensive asset, but you can't sell it for 17 years. If you made a penny of profit, all profit went back to the county. How would you like to do that for your first house?
Well, and this is part of it with, so our kids are growing
That
up,
one's
you know,
gone.
they're graduating from college. And if you go into one of the government programs, you are still under a time restriction that you can't sell it and make your full profit. You can sell it and make prorated profit, but it has to be, we went, I think, 15 down to 7. I think in some cases we're back up to 15 now. But if you have a child or yourself and you can afford a $275,000 home, you know, 2 or 3 bedrooms, bath and a half, why would you go into a program that's limiting you on what you can make on your largest investment? It doesn't make sense to me, and I argued that, but I didn't get anywhere. The other thing that we, on the state, we're going to fix the daycare bill. So the daycare bill, as it is now, it's different for elderly daycare than it is from child daycare. And for children's daycare, you can't put a daycare within 500 feet of a gas station. Everybody that wants to put a daycare in somehow is always under 500 feet, 485, 490, and they have to go to the Board of Adjustment, and some of them get the relief and some of them don't. So what we're doing is putting all daycares together, because I said if it's an elderly daycare, if you have to go to an elderly daycare, you probably don't have a whole lot more common sense than a 5-year-old. So if you're gonna, 5-year-old's gonna wander, somebody else, if they're not watched closely, that's elderly, dementia, whatever, is probably gonna wander too. So we're going to say that 500 feet, we no longer have the 500 feet to the gas station, because the fallacy was, if the gas station is there and I want to put in a daycare, I can't put the daycare in unless it's 500 feet away from the gas station. But if I have a daycare and the gas station wants to come in, there's no restriction. So that doesn't make sense to me. So we're just basically a housekeeping bill, but we're going to clean that up and add a couple things, like if you have propane for heating or cooking, that it's got to be in an underground tank. You know, there's protections that are going to go in, because there's some places in this county where there's no gas and they don't really want electric heat, so they, you know, opt for propane. But the fact that you can put the gas station there right next to them, as long as the daycare's there first, makes no sense in my mind.
Are you afraid of gas station exploding?
Yeah. Then I said, they wanted, you know, where Cherno's, was it a Cherno's property down on 72 and Limestone Road?
Oh, right over here we did one. Children of America with the Shell station, they had to put up the blast wall.
Right. They got their variance because they put up the wall. But I said, because the people that wanted to put one down at 72 in Limestone,
yep,
they were turned down by the Board of Adjustment. And I said, you've got your setback from the road, because that's codified. You have a right turning lane, a straight lane, a left turning lane. Then you make the U-turn, you've got a full straight lane, and a right-hand turning lane. It seems to me at that intersection, you'd have more likelihood of an accident with a truck that would have gasoline in it than you would of that gas station exploding. So that's coming soon. So this has been the week of reading legislation and not having any control over it. And the thing with like all these land use bills on the state side, we keep getting people saying, well, write to them, go down there and testify.
You get 1 minute at the state.
Yeah, you have to be invited, you don't even actually get 1 minute. But coming from the federal government, they say to the states, you get land use. It's in our Delaware Constitution. Land use falls to the state. The the state may give it to the county or other municipalities with certain restrictions, but they have the ability to take it back at any time for something general or specific. So you've got to think of something other than you just shouldn't be taking land use from the county. So
Because Matt became governor and went from county, he wants land use still. Maybe he wanted to get rid of land use.
I don't think he really wants it. I think it's kind of being pushed on him.
I just have a quick question, and
Yeah.
you didn't touch on this, and I don't even know if I just heard of it today, that there's a new House bill, or actually it's a Senate bill, 134, reverse auctions, which is proposing that for any state or county or local bidding process, they're going to be public and all bids are going to be known. So you have a chance to lower your bid, like reverse of a silent
Right,
auction.
right.
Have you heard of that?
I heard something about that, but I really don't know anything about it. I mean, that comes under our sheriff for the most part. It's our sheriff's department that does auctions.
No, it would be for any job, if you're bidding a job, like a construction
okay.
job for the county or the state, that
No.
they're going to start reverse auctioning that.
No, then that's not one that I know of. If it's for the county also, I'll check.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. It sounds like you're having more fun getting back involved with the state.
I know, I was hoping somebody would be here tonight.
Yeah, I checked with Mike. I don't know if he's at a community meeting or what. I asked him if he could let us know. Nope, that's not him. Okay. I know Dave is not here. Laura, I wrote her enough emails this week. She probably didn't see me. Land use. Let's go through that real quick. By the way, I think in the last 30 days, I've answered 3 of these questions incessantly on email, and I told people start going to the meetings because I can't type all the emails to the 20 questions. Wells Fargo is not going to become Wawa. They can't do it. There's protected lands behind it with the stormwater area, and they're not allowed to put tanks in because there's a stream there. They're not closing the other Wawa and turning it into something else. Let's see, what's the other one? It's not going to be a Chick-fil-A. It's not going to be a McDonald's. That's going on corner of Paper Mill and Limestone. Maybe. Yeah. Let's see what else.
Maybe, if there's a change in that.
What?
McDonald's.
Yeah, they may or may not. They do their economic study once they get everything done, and they figure out they're doing the traffic counts. They're getting the latest traffic counts because it's all about cars and time.
Did you see the joke going around on social media when the Pope was elected in the white smoke? That somebody sent a picture of the McDonald's down there with white smoke coming out, and it said, "White smoke rising over McDonald's,
Means the
signifying
ice cream
the ice cream machine is working."
Let's see, what's the other one that's always being asked? Oh, I can't remember, but there were a couple good ones. I got some more today. So Wells Fargo is still for sale, 2.7. There have been some people looking at it. 3.5, a little over 3.5 acres with a commercial regional zoning. So it could be a mini office and storefronts and things like that. But our guess is it's going to get raised and they're going to build a new building and everything just because it's the only way to get the money out of it when you have a $2.7 million price tag. The Hartnett Law Building, that I heard has sold. There were a couple offers, one went under, but it is back, and I think back under contract again, so we'll see. So this will be the second time it's gone under contract. Walgreens at Brackenville, 2012 Brackenville, still listed for sale, call it $5.8 million, 12,000 square feet roughly. It's just subject to a long-term lease. They're just doing what all the other big box stores do for different things. They're just selling off their property with a long-term lease back, triple net lease. Annual is $462,000 and change, goes up 12.5 at a 3-year and a 5-year renewal options, but it will run through February of 29 if anybody wants to get a nice $460,000 a month lease. Coffee Run Condo, that property was listed at $1.4 million for half an acre to construct a new 5-story max building was 45 luxury condos. That has sold. So they're looking for the developer now at this point, if it's not the one that bought it, not sure, but that did sell. NVF master plan, Quarry Walk, if you haven't been by, they are putting in the pump station right now to connect to the county. Saw a bunch of equipment out there that showed up today to finish off. I think they just have to get the equipment into the building, but the building is up and the roof is on, so we're just waiting. They did also, Delmarva dropped in 3-phase power, so that's in there. 701 Valley Road, the Brick Ranch, Mr. Settings' property. Still no update. I was gonna ask you, Jen, can you find out if they ever memorialized his plan? Because I don't know if he ever did anything to, I mean, he didn't have to cut a curve. There was something about tie-in to
Right.
the other plan from
Right.
Blenheim. But I'm curious if his is going to expire if he didn't do anything.
If you didn't do anything, it should expire by 5
Yeah,
years.
that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if we're gonna see that go back on the market because it's been about that long. So that one there, nothing going on. I haven't been able to get him to shoot back a copy on an email when I sent it to him. 520 Valley Road, that's still listed for sale. This is the kitty corner from Walgreens. Originally, it was going to be the Goddard School was gonna relocate, but then the economy took a turn. They decided to stay where they were. But it is a by right building for residential, which can include a for-profit daycare. I still want you to get legislation to change that. And that's, I don't understand why they have that as residential under schools. But if it can be a daycare, or it could be 2 to 5 single-family homes. But I believe the county changed the road type, so it has to be less than 4 now. If you don't have, underground catch basins and hard curves. So that still is listed. I think it was around $700,000 or $800,000 is what they paid for it. Don't know what they're asking for. 6042, 6060 Limestone, that's the major redevelopment without a rezoning. 4% is low income, 80 units, 3 stories. Have you heard anything more from the Beers at all on that?
Age restricted.
Yeah, and it has to be, it was HUD, it was under HUD, so there was a lot of hoops they had to jump through to get everything done. And that's the last, I can't remember talking with his daughter, but it was that she was heading up the project, that they were confirming all the HUD documentation and grants were in place. Without that, it doesn't go forward.
Right, they've done those type of developments in a lot of places, so they know the system.
So it could be just the federal government delays. The former Exxon station in Richardson's, as we know, Richardson's is open. Both sides are put into one parcel. That goes all the way back to 2019. Land use has got the latest plan, which shows the Exxon building staying there, some variances due to the drive-in lanes. And as soon as we get the site work there from the PERC remediation from the EPA and NREC, then I guess they'll begin doing things, because all that equipment takes up quite a bit of space right now behind the fencing. But it will have access right in, right out on Lancaster Pike, and full access on Northland Road, both left and right. And that plan was filed in May of 23. Valley Road, former Camerano, they are literally down to the last 5 or 6 lots. The developer said they are going to build them out as spec homes, and they'll probably basically just put in what most people have been buying. But the county needs the building permits, so they should be done within the end of, they're saying they're going to be done the end of this year, by 26, and they'll have them sold. And everything will be done from the road, top coat paving, so that the community will turn over. And across the street, I'm gonna jump ahead, at Hockessin Station, they have moved the start date back to 26. But if you've gone by there, you've noticed there's a lot of underground utility work being put in for sewer lines and water lines being directionally bored in. So they're gonna be there for the next several months doing that. And then once they're done, Pete knows the historic house will stay in place. Hopefully we get a marker for that. But other than that, 143 homes will be done. In Lantana, no updates there. We get a hold of them to see if they've got anything going on. Well, the Chinese restaurant, I guess, has anyone been there? It's good. So far, thumbs up? Okay. So,
It's not actually Chinese.
oh, it's fusion Asian, yeah. It's got everything for life, so I'm gonna give it a shot. But it looks really nice from what they did on the renovations inside.
I'm wondering how long those white chairs are gonna stay white.
I noticed that in there. Who puts white velvet
Yep.
in a restaurant?
White
They were beautiful, but yes.
And they can't be taken off.
No, they're not.
They can't
they're
be
not
taken
slip
off
covers.
and- yeah.
They're upholstered chairs.
Yeah.
White
I'm
upholstery.
glad you said that. I thought that
Maybe
too.
they've got a really good cleaning service. Who knows? All right, 3 cell towers. We do have our tower up here at the PAL Center is up and in beta testing. It hasn't gone live that we have seen on our phones yet, but it's going to be going soon. Coffee run, they're starting on that one, and the sign just went up out in front of our office out in Yorkland for the other one at Creek Road. And that's the one that's gonna look like a windmill, old-fashioned windmill. So it looks like all 3 of them have worked their way through, and they will be, at some point, up and running. They're all Verizon, they'll all have backup generators, yay for that. You know, not much good with power without it. And 1510, I actually talked to one of the family members on this. This is 1510 Paper Mill. As you head down Paper Mill Road on the left, there's a little old stone house on the left side that has a driveway that comes out. That is going forward with a rezoning from S to suburban transition, so that's actually a down zone, isn't it? S to ST?
No,
No other way?
so,
Density, right,
Density.
ST. 32 age-restricted townhomes. They're gonna retain the existing 2-story historic home and garage. Win for you, Pete, you can add that to your list. They'll change the driveway, so it will be moved from Paper Mill to the community street, and the access point will be further down, so it's off the corner. But that one, they should be starting pretty soon on site clearing, from what they were saying, maybe this fall. Cameron Mushroom Farm, that one, I already talked about that. Harmony, that's the one, I usually look to Tom to do that, but I went by the other night, and my gosh, that place was lit up. They, all of the construction on the exterior, landscaping is pretty much, going in, and they're doing all interior work at this point, but after visiting a friend recently over in Kennett that just went into a independent/assisted living, and what they charge for that, I don't know why they aren't up there 24/7 building, because the rates are unbelievable. So, not sure the timing when they're gonna get done, but at this point, we have that one, and it's still, is there one other one that's still been actively looking for a parcel? Because we had the one that was going to go at Hockessin Station, that didn't work out.
right.
And there was another one up on Limestone Road, and that one is now Revere's project.
I can't think of another one. I mean, we've had at least 3 companies in here looking, but only one actually got it built.
And I was just gonna ask you, on that one up there, did you ever, there was the neighborhood behind it, I'm trying to remember the name, where there were some concerns on the lighting, but it's all lead lighting, so it's all cut off, so that, I remember, I think you went up, didn't you, or somebody floated a balloon?
Thornberry is the street in Westridge, yeah. And there's a lot between them. It's not like the nursing home or the assisted living home backs up to the backyards of the people on Thornberry. There's a whole nother lot between them.
That's good. All right, I think I've covered everything. And as always, I'll send this over to Tina once she's better with her eye surgery, and we have all of the District 3 projects that Janet has. If you ever want to see them, you can go onto her website, and it will list all the projects in the 3rd district. And there's quite a few little ones, a couple major, small ones, but they're all listed. I think it's a page, 2 pages, and 1 line. So it's all different projects that are going on in the 3rd district.
And remember, the 3rd district goes far outside.
Yeah, it goes far. I did attend the last Yorkland meeting that took place at the CCA, and I missed Carlos's opening, but I heard the rest of it, and I actually did talk with Carlos after the meeting, and we're gonna try to sit down at some point, once we each have some time. I think the biggest concern, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that the apartments that were going in at the old mill across the tracks was the one that really set everybody off. But Carlos and a couple other folks were saying they'd like to unring the bell on everything, which I don't know how you go back 6 years and do that.
It's going back 20 years.
Yeah, it goes all the way back to the remediation. So it's, you were there too, I tried to hear at that meeting as well, as I recall.
Yes.
A few others.
And
Laura
I've had a
Sturgeon was
meeting
there.
with Isaac and 3 other people since then, after we've talked through some of these things. I think they understand a little better, and I've also had conversations with DENREC. And as I talk to people, I'm keeping DENREC in the loop, telling them what I'm explaining to other people. I mean, when you look at the property out there, this is a 20-year-old plan, and the master plans change over the years because situations change. But the park, what DENREC owns cannot be sold. But there's a lot of private property up there, and if DENREC makes the restrictions too tight on what those private owners can do on their property, that becomes a taking. So there's gotta be a balance here, you know, people have to be able to develop their property, and the trade-off was that they got a 200-acre park. You know, they keep saying this should have gone through the county, well, maybe it should, but again, you know, federal, state, and they can give it to us or they can take it away from us. Are we better? Yes, because we do it all the time. DENREC is not good at this as far as having a process. You know, they are just kind of flinging, yep, this, yes, that. But it's a fine line between how much you can say somebody can do on their property, and when you try to get them to undo everything, that they have to have compensation for that. Even if you go and look at, I think it's the federal regulations, if you say just leave this open because of all the animals and wildlife that we want for, that is a taking. You can't just leave it for the animals without it being a taking. So it's the private property out there that is the developable property, but you know that all of that would have been developed back where that park is, because there's nothing, you know, they might have had steep slopes in one area of it, but you know that would have been developed. And that was DENREC's entire push 20 years ago, because I worked for Debbie Hudson, and that was in her district. And they saw that when NVF closed, they knew the contamination, and they saw that it was being parceled off so that the developers were buying the developable land that didn't need to be cleaned. And the state knew that all of the contaminated land was gonna fall to them. So they said, we're just gonna take it all, and we will sell off parcels. People bought parcels because they didn't want it to be overdeveloped, but they still have the right to have some development on there. I talked about maybe we could figure out a new plan where we're subdividing off lots instead of having a condo there. Like, could we subdivide lots? You know, people would put $1 million homes in the middle of that space. So there's a lot of things going on, but the government, the state, has to pay attention to all of the ramifications on both sides. You know, does it get developed, doesn't it? And if it doesn't, what do we owe these people for not allowing them to develop?
Thanks again for meeting with us the other week. That was, I thought, a really helpful meeting.
Yeah.
And the only other update there is that this coming Thursday, and this ties back to your comments earlier about the state getting into business where it doesn't know how to do things or isn't necessarily the wisest decision maker. So to clarify, our ask is going to be when we go to Dover this Thursday for lobby day, we're asking for the state legislators to consider removing the section of the bond bill that took that authority from the county to oversee land use in Yorkland in return it to the county because they're the ones, as you said, have the power to do that.
Yes,
And
yes.
it's not, the county's at the whims of the state, so we're going to the state. Because we know that the county, as you've said yourself, has that expertise, doesn't just do things sort of on a whim, and has a more coherent vision and investment and accountability to the community, which sounds like is the thing that's been missing, especially the last 10 years or so, the accountability to the community, and what is owed to the community as well as what is owed to the developers. So that's what is coming up on that front. Regarding that specific Chatham Bay property, like we discussed, I don't think we were really even talking about the taking. We were talking about what it would take to get that land, to get the person who sold it, but Thomas, maybe to reconsider, you know, what would a fair deal to him look like if he doesn't want to give it to Chatham Bay in the end. And then in the meantime, our ask to DENREC, this was one of the updates from the town hall. DENREC said, this is the status of each one of these projects. Where we walked, nothing DENREC can do, that's moving forward. Chatham Bay, according to the DENREC secretary, which was that 6-story luxury condo building that got proposed in December, they're still reviewing that and considering it. So because that proposal disregarded the Auburn Valley Master Plan, which is the only reference point at this point where there was any sort of guidelines, we're asking that DENREC not approve that proposal. And if you didn't like that proposal either, then you know that's something that you can voice as well. They said they're gonna hold a separate meeting for the community as part of the public review process about that specific Chatham Bay apartment building. So that's coming up. We don't know when. Is there any update from them about when that might be?
Yeah.
That's all I would add to that. Thank you.
And just to clarify, Quarry Walk, Mills Edge, and Mill 6 are all approved subdivisions with signed development agreements. Approved subdivisions with pending redevelopment agreement, there's one, Yorkland SE Properties LLC, that's a 3-lot minor subdivision. And then when you get into what you're talking about, the eligible redevelopment properties with redevelopments requested but not passed or even crafted. Mill 1, Building 15 and 18, 200 Gun Club Road, and Building 29B. And then if you cross the creek, eligible for redevelopment with no redevelopment agreement request is the Garrett Snuff Mills, which is all of the property that the Lickles owned.
Right.
It's still in the family, I guess, but they had already on the other side of the creek. But they never bought into it. So that's the list right from DENREC. And we did ask, so I brought the question up after waiting about 42 minutes to get my hand recognized, that they put all the information on the DENREC state site. There's a couple of groups out there with individual websites that want it to be the repository of all the information, but when you go there, they don't have all the information. DENREC has all the official information and anything that's pending, and they have to also give the 2-week notice for any state meeting. So that was, they were saying is there's a couple of them, it's a little difficult to find, but you can search on it based on the various projects or the Auburn Valley Master Plan, you'll find all of the plans. Matter of fact, I think one of the documents is like a 1,000-page document. It's already on the website. It's been there for 5-6 years.
I was just gonna ask if you wouldn't mind linking that in the notes or the minutes, if that's possible.
Yeah, it's just DENREC. It's DENREC Auburn Master Plan.
Okay.
You go to the DENREC site.
Thank you.
But I had asked them to actually put a specific one to it where they would link all of them. And I talked to the secretary afterwards, and he said it will take them a while to do that, but they're all there. You just have to use the keyword to find them, to go through them.
All right, thank
But I remember there was one thing they talked about bringing a thumb drive with 1,000-page documents. It's too long to email, but it's right there. I pulled it up on my phone while we were in the meeting and looked at it. So there it is. So I mean, the state's been very good about at least having all the documentation. So it'd be nice to have it all in one place. But thank you both.
And remember, this is not the only place that the state is doing land use. This is not unusual for them.
Go down
They
Kent and
did-
look at the turf fields, right?
Well, they did, right, and they did Blue Ball up here. They're doing Governor Bacon. You know, they created an authority to do Governor Bacon down in Delaware City.
That's right. Are they doing anything with Emily Bissell yet on Newport Gap?
Yes, and
Another one.
For how many 20 years or 15 years at least, that has been going to be taken over, not going to be taken over, and, yeah.
I think that'd be a great shelter, that building, I mean, just sink the money into it and turn it into another one. I know, different.
Remember, you have to have somebody to run these things.
Put all the piping back.
Yeah, you can put the HVAC in.
Oh, right.
All right. Anything else? If not, we have our wonderful elections again this year. And Trish, as always, thank you for filling in tonight in Tom's place.
I got an email from Tom that he wasn't going to make the meeting, so he sent me the candidates. We have actually two things to vote on. We have the normal 3-year term GHADA members, we have 4 of those, and then we have the 1-year term board,
Executive board.
president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. So we'll do the 3-year terms for GHADA membership. Tina Goldberg, Drew Marshall, Alan Nichols, and Mike Terranova. And I have to go look at the sign-in sheet, because I don't have where they're, I think Tina
Mike,
is.
Alan, and Tina are here, and I don't think
Tina
Drew is here
is,
either.
yeah, well,
So they're in absentia. We can vote them into anything because they're not here. That's how you get on committees.
anyway, our 4 members, all in favor of Tina Goldrick, Drew Marshall,
Point of
Alan
order.
Nichols, and Mike Terranova,
Point of order.
re-electing,
Point of order. Motion to accept the slate as presented.
okay.
Anyone?
Question also,
Sure.
for future reference, like what is this process, how does it work? Do people submit themselves with the
All right, the GHADA members are elected for 3-year terms. We try to spread them out so that they're all not elected at the same time. These people would be elected for 2025, 26, 27, I think. And, these are the ones whose terms end in 25.
And they are representatives of neighborhoods in the Hockessin or GHADA footprint.
And
And we have at large as well, so you can be at large if you wish.
Tina Goldrick is Charter Oaks, and Drew Marshall is Autumnwood, Alan Nichols is Southwood, and Mike Terranova is Southwood Estates. So, all, motion to approve them. Jeff?
Yep.
Second?
Mr. Brickman?
Bonnie? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay,
If we could do all elections like this, boy, it'd be great.
all right, the slate for the next year for officers, we have Mark Blake, president, Tom Bruno, vice president, Chris Cavender, vice president, Joe Hackman, treasurer, and Tina Goldberg, secretary.
She's not here, so we're gonna
Motion to approve the board officers. Second.
Bill.
All in favor? Anybody opposed? Anybody want to run for office?
Yeah, remember, we can always put you in halfway through if one of us decides to move to Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Okay, the elections.
All right. Okay, 4th of July. Another one question about the 4th of July. What day does Hockessin celebrate the 4th of July?
4th of July.
What day is the parade for 4th of July?
4th of July.
When do the fireworks go off?
4th of July.
No, dusk on the 4th of July.
It's the 4th of July, right?
We have to change that. We're always the 4th of July, and it's rain or shine for the fireworks, because once we pay the deposit, that money is gone if we have to change it by even one day. And the nightmare to change the permits with the fire marshal, to do that requires another permit fee, and then we've got to get the fire company. Dan's always good about that sort of thing, so it's not a big a deal for Hockessin. But we have to also close the streets with DelDOT, and we can't do 2 days in a row on the same street. So we always stick it to the 4th of July. It makes it easy. It's not July 3rd, it's not July 5th, it's 4th of July, which happens to be a Friday this year, so it should be good.
So all the phone calls I get here, I'm just gonna forward to your cell phone. and you can-
Absolutely, I just love those. I'm already getting them. I'm getting people that are registering as, I love it. By the way, Janet doesn't do this, so I'm gonna poke fun at some of the other elected officials at the state level. I'm a tax exempt person that wants to be in the parade and do this or that. Really, because I didn't believe you can be a 501c3 and hold elected office. That's actually against the state law. So, and I won't even tell you who it is, but I find it very funny because they're in charge of money. So, interesting. But yeah, so there's already a lot of them coming in, but the parade, I don't like doing the parade. It's the most difficult thing of the whole thing. So I would love to have more volunteers. We've got some people from last year that are gonna come back, but that's the one part of the day where we really need a lot of people to help keep the cats organized. School Street is only for emergency vehicles. Nobody else goes on School Street this year.
School lane. No school bus lane.
I'm not sure.
Who else lane?
If he doesn't, I'm having him towed this year. I got BNF coming back and they're gonna tow him because it throws the thing off. Everybody else is up at St. Mary's.
I'll tell him.
Let him know. That's because he didn't give me a hot dog last year when I came down the parade route and started. So all the fire equipment, all the emergency equipment, all go on School Street. And we have signs we put up last year. I'm sorry.
Schoolhouse lane.
Right, Schoolhouse Lane. Yes.
One complaint from last year, and it's just a complaint that I heard from somebody who lives along that road, is that the diesel smell bothers them because the emergency vehicles idle for too long.
Going down the parade route?
Just while they're waiting to be in the parade. That they're staged there for so long that people
They
get.
usually run them, do they, Dan, until you
We'll address it. Some of them leave their trucks running, but we can fix that.
Yeah, it's just something that one of the residents told me as I was walking down the route.
Okay. Yes, sir.
The cost for the fireworks set already? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're just,
Go up.
for everything, it went up this year. We were able to get the last couple of years, they held pricing with us. But this year, the cost of insurance went up, and that's the thing, that's why the parade, people think the parade's free, you just show up and put a bunch of folks down the hill. But we have to have insurance for the 2 church parking lots. We have to get the state police, and they no longer are able to give us free service. So they charge us to have the state police out for traffic patrol. Thankfully, the county, we'll see how Marcus does this year, but the county has always been very generous. They send the mounted patrol at no cost, and county police, the liaison, the Hockessin Fire Company puts on a nice little lunch for all of the first responders afterwards, which everybody loves from those guys. Because I mean, they're out here basically a very long, hot day. So I always want to thank the fire company for all their help. And they also, because of their presence to the fireworks, keeps the insurance lower than what it could be. And I don't know if it's you, Dan, that always does it, but you're always my point of contact. But getting all the paperwork to the state fire marshal and everything, pulling all the permits, making sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. It would be a lot tougher to do the fireworks if it weren't. And we use the Hockessin Football Club, the soccer field, to shoot them off. Representative Smith always gets volunteers the day after to clean up the field. That's another big thing, that he could always use extra hands. It doesn't take too much time, but he's out there in the morning doing that. And then we tried to get parking last year down at the Blenheim site, Hockessin Station. It worked out pretty good. I think we made, 800, 700? That's right. On the, charging 10. I really want the county to enforce the no parking on Valley Road. We would have made, we figured out based on the cars that were parked, we could have made about $4,000 more if they had parked in the field where we had parking. But they park on both sides of Valley Road. They park in no parking areas. They go all the way from Walgreens all the way down to where the library is and the ball fields.
Who's
who's put the signs up
For what then?
for no parking? There can't be a no parking if there's no signs.
Oh, I know, that's what I'm saying, but you need to make it no parking.
He wants you to change it.
They want you to change it.
This, when you think of what,
Because they're mostly from PA, to be honest. If you look at the tags, it's hysterical. I gotta look at some revenue.
but they, remember that when they widened Valley Road, they very purposely put the crates underneath the grass because they knew people were gonna park off.
Oh, that's by the ball field, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they go all the way to Walgreens on both sides.
But unless there's a no parking sign, there's nothing to enforce.
Well, the ones that say no parking here to the corner or here to the intersection, they do it anyway. So, there's a
I
couple
don't know
of
where
them.
those signs are.
Yeah. I'll just have Dan run the engines down, that'll take care of it. Get a new engine.
Tough to get down there.
What was the other thing? We're going to do the same, with the Lickles. They're gonna let us use Hockessin Corner, because they usually close, in the afternoon on the holiday. I think there's only one restaurant, one or two that stay open. I know they close the back burner typically, but what's the other one?
Cozy Corner.
Cozy Corner? Yep, they're gonna stay open, but we'll have the beer garden donated by Dew Point Brewing again as a fundraiser for the 4th of July, and we'll have live music and a couple of food trucks. Last year they did well, the food trucks sold out. This year we're gonna charge a percentage or a fee. Last year we just wanted to get them back because we hadn't done it in about 2 or 3 years from before COVID. So looks like it's back and it's viable, so that will help. And then, let's see, church parking lots, so we've got Joe helping me do this stuff to make sure we get it all done. But we'll have everything. But the parade probably is around $5,000 to $6,000. It's just what it costs to do the parade. So if anyone ever says, oh, the parade's free, I don't know why they don't have this, that, or the other. That's what it costs to have all the things, to have parking, staging, and the insurance, and all the other fun things with traffic closures, state police and everything, just to do the parade. So please ask your friends and neighbors donations. We did get a lot of small donations from $25 to $100 from neighborhoods and individuals, and it helps. Janet's always very good with the county, getting the county to help out. They're one of the bigger sponsors, along with Green Up Towing. I always tell this joke. Everyone, when John Carney was governor a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, he came up to me and says, Mark, I have a question. Why does B&F Towing go at the front of the parade? And I'm the governor. I put my hand on John's shoulder and I said, John, B&F writes a really big check. And he takes out his checkbook. He says, all right, how much? And then when I told him, he closes his checkbook. He said, B&F can go first. So,
When you have your local business, when will you start putting signs up?
tonight. They're going up tonight. I actually was going to do it last night, but I fell asleep on
Talking
the
about
couch.
sponsor signs? Yeah, sponsor signs that go down.
On Valley Road.
On Valley Road.
On front of the Holtz's property.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna put up the Hockessin signs, for the 4th of July out here at the Dorkland intersection, over by the Lantana Wiskus location, and then one on each end of the fences in front of Holtz's property on Valley Road, but I fell asleep last night and didn't get out in time, so I'm doing it tonight after this meeting.
So how early would you put up?
They'll go up starting tomorrow. As soon as checks show up, as soon as sponsorship checks show up, your sign goes up. So yeah, and the website's up and running. Everybody that was a sponsor last year is still on there. So we hope to get as much, I think it's just a little over 43,000 this year for everything. And next year being the 250th anniversary of this great experiment called the United States, we're expecting a lot of people next year, and it is an election year. So
It's also a Saturday.
yeah, so it would be a big one. One thing we would love, if anybody knows anyone at the high schools locally that can talk them into getting the kids to come out to march, the marching bands, we would love to. We have not been able to get a marching band since before COVID because the schools are closed and the kids kind of scatter for the summer. And the only way to get them right now is to do professional bands and pay them. And we did that 1 year. And it didn't work out well. They actually lost money doing that. So I'm loath to pay if we're not gonna be able to cover the cost. But Fife and Drum Corps for next year, I'd really love to see like some colonial reenactors, the guys with the muskets, firing on blanks, cannon, all that fun stuff.
AI doesn't have a group of kids that just volunteer. I mean, but for years, they were the only ones. This is from 19, whenever we started this. We have never had a school band. We've tried the alumni bands, thinking if they didn't want to march, we could put them on trailers. And AI was the only one that ever sent a group of kids. You know, they just wore red and white and came with their instruments and marched, but.
AI doesn't, what do they have, 10 kids now?
Yeah.
I mean, since Brett, since Brett's last.
They have like 6 kids.
Yeah.
What about a place like Cab? Did you know,
I last year, I think I sent emails and phoned 5 different schools in the area, all the way from McCann, Colonial, a whole bunch of them, charter school, trying to get anyone that we could.
I just had 12
They have
kids
to
from
be an
Cab in
hour
my
at school.
house for prom, and they sang the whole afternoon.
Live music.
Because they're trying to get thinking of getting ready.
Kenneth band,
8 and
Kenneth
7.
school, high school band plays in their Memorial Day parade next week. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you wouldn't mind,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's-
about a middle school?
If they can march and play an instrument, they would be welcome. I don't care if it's kazoos. People want live music. Well, it'd be nice if they could play well, but you know, at this point, maybe people say, okay, you back off on the band. They really weren't that good.
Just bring a drum and march.
You get the School of Rock, they put together a group and flatbed and such. But I joke, I mean, this is like what, 1/8 of a mile route? It's very short.
And most of it's downhill.
And when I grew up, we had like a 5-mile parade route that we marched from the high school downtown. We marched in every parade there was. And I'm going like, this was great. It didn't matter.
The difference is just schools in session, schools not in session. You know, you can get Memorial Day, you can get Labor Day, but you just can't get in the middle of summer.
All right, that's what I've got. But again, thanks to everybody for your efforts. Spread the word. The signs will go up. Hopefully people will start seeing them and donations will come in. We are basically on the hook for half. And they wait for us to send the check. They just take it on state that we're going to, and it's always come through. I don't get too nervous anymore. The first year I did it, I was extremely nervous after Kenny handed it over. But Janet did it, and I mean, she's only been doing it for what? When you started this?
I did 17 years with one other woman. And we had, and I think I told you this last year, that we did have a way of checking them in at the top of the hill. So when you're up there and you're saying, you're next, and they're, you know, not paying attention to you, we had everybody, so as they came in, you have to have somebody up there very early at Lancaster Pike. But when they came in, they stopped, they told us who they were, and we told them where to park. We divided up section A, section B, section C, down the hill, section D, and we then had, everybody was in line, ready to go. As we used to give the announcer the list ahead of time because we knew exactly where everybody was going.
Yeah, I had my wife type up the day before all of the people that done the entries into a book in large print for the announcers. Janet used to do the announcing too, and then we just number them in the order that they're supposed to come in, but you know how that goes. It's
Right,
like,
but you gotta have somebody at that entrance very early, like if you're saying 1 o'clock.
yeah, we were there 2
12:30.
hours beforehand, people
They
started
have to
holding
be there,
spaces.
yes, yes.
It was a nightmare. We don't have enough people up there to do that. We end up with about 3 or 4 people. It was a lot better last year than it was the last couple. All right.
And the announcers are good enough to know who's coming next. You know, you've got people announcing that know who's who. So even if they don't get something accurate, they can improvise pretty easily.
Okay. Mr. Pete and Darlene, Hockessin Historic Society. I know we have Juneteenth coming up. You guys want to give a quick update?
Go ahead, Darlene. You can talk about Juneteenth first. Then I'll fill in with the boring stuff.
Okay, Juneteenth is gonna be June 18th. Okay, it's on a Wednesday. We've got 3 speakers coming. The best speaker is this, reenactor. His name is Noah Lewis. I'm looking forward, I've seen him before and he's really good. Also, I've got just one more thing to say, in that I'm involved in some research, and I don't think anyone here really knew or knows about the research. It's called free produce, okay? Free produce store. A free produce store occurred in Hockessin about 1826. It involved slavery or lack of. It means that you go to a store, you do not allow any purchases or produce in your store that slaves made. Okay? We have one store here that I'm doing research on. It is the Yorkland Post Office. Okay? And at first, I didn't believe it. You usually have to have like 3 different pieces of evidence that it was actually that place. So I did go down there and I talked to a person called Sharon, and she didn't know too much about it, but she promised to look into it for me. It's abolitionists, people that wanted to protect slaves. Yeah. When I get the article written, I'll let you guys know.
Interesting, yes.
Darlene, where was the first place that you came across that information?
Oh, some people contacted me. They are with the John Tweed family, and they were the ones that told me about that free produce store.
All right, Pete?
Thank you, Mark. Last month was pretty much housekeeping for me. We had to get our occupancy permit for the museum, which sounds really simple, but it involves so much work. We have to get all the fire extinguishers inspected, and it costs a lot of money for them to shake the fire extinguishers and put a tag on. But it's okay. We managed. The boiler also needed to be inspected over at Lamborn. They can explode, so they have to be done by DENREC. They do a pressure test on them. And I think they actually don't do a test, they just charge us a lot of money. But yeah, that's done with. The next project there is the air conditioning units. We have a contract with them. One's in the basement, which is awesome. The other one's upstairs in the attic, and there's a suspended ceiling like this, and it's back in the kitchen above the refrigerator. So I have to get a special ladder in there and pop the ceiling tiles and climb up there, and then have them do it before it gets too hot because they don't want to be up in the attic doing the maintenance on the unit. I don't know how they got it up there, but it's great. Let's see. We also need to get the next grant material already and estimates on the next batch of repairs that need to be done for both buildings. But in the meantime, we are starting our work on Tweed's Tavern this week, and that's with 18th Century Restoration, which is the same group that moved the building initially, so they know the building very well. When we get estimates for repairs, we end up just going back to him because every company gives you lowball estimates, then they rip the building apart and then say they found more stuff than they saw initially. That's the way it works with everybody. So we got a certain amount of grant funding, thanks to Jen and Kilpatrick, and so we're going to limit him and try to just keep it to that amount of money, and then the next grant will just keep cycling through. But the reason why it costs so much is they want it looking historic, so we keep doing the same historic whitewash to have it keep that historic appearance, and that type of building material is just expensive. The contracting is expensive, and the material doesn't last. So we keep doing it the same way to keep it looking the way it does. We also have a bunch of new volunteers that are starting to work with us. We had one that's interested in setting up programs and events. So they're going to be networking together as a group. We had one that was interested in doing a tavern event where they play old tavern games. that they would have played back in the day, and they know people who can do the time period costumes and stuff. And they said it's a lot of fun, that people really enjoy those types of programs. We'll see if that happens. The problem that we have with Tweeds is a parking issue. There's just no reserved parking for us. So if we plan something months in advance, we're stuck with limited parking sometimes. Then we also have another volunteer who's offered to build up our website and help us with social media and also online membership options. Right now, we're still taking cash and check, which is nice, and it's historic, I guess, maybe, but people want to pay virtual and online, and then those methods all change all the time too. So keeping track of that and keeping that up to date is a matter of just linking that onto our website, which we're paying a lot of money for anyway, but we would at least be making better use of that. I'll let you go with that much. Any questions?
Are you paying a host for your
I'm
website?
doing it myself.
Okay.
So I agreed to do that as a donation. So I'm paying out of pocket. It works out to a little bit of over $100 a year. So I'm paying. The longer you pay for the contract, the lower the price they give you. But I can hop on anytime I want and make any changes I want, and then I can do a link to a payment company. But then they're the ones that charge money. Our treasurer does not want to link that to one of our existing checking accounts, so that means getting another checking account set up also. So that's just how
Yeah,
we're.
I mean, I got some
Sure.
thoughts on that.
Thank you.
Save you some money
Okay.
and time.
Okay.
Because that's what we do with GHADA. It doesn't go directly to the checking, it goes to another account with the same bank. So it drops into that bucket and then gets moved over.
Yeah, the banks have been getting a little tight with their security and having, because of all the issues they're causing for themselves. So, yeah, setting up an account's fun at the bank.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Pete or Darlene? And Darlene, thank you for the note on Juneteenth.
Darlene, what does this reenactor do exactly? 'Cause I've been mentioning this.
He
to a
does
couple
American Revolution, and he took this black man, his name was Ned Hector, and he behaves as if he's this black man. He's great. This guy is really good. I've seen some reenactors before, and he's just fabulous. I ran into him at the Hillburn's house. Yeah. I'll gotta give that to you, the Hillburn's house. You will enjoy that, I think.
All right. Okay, Bill, you want to tell us the HBA's meeting tomorrow night? Or is it going to be a very cool place?
Yes, the HBA meeting tomorrow is at the Dew Point Brewery. For members who have an open bar, they're picking up the tab for their adult drinks. Our guest speaker is going to be Dan Crossland from Mackley Harvard, and he'll be talking to the group about proper estate planning, succession planning, and business exit strategies. Our host, or the host is Sean Hoffman at Dew Point, and our sponsors are Lynn and Mike Paxson from Elisa's Advisors. As you may have seen, and Dan probably can attest to this, is that May 31st is a big day. The folks at Woodside Farms are having their big fundraising event for the fire company. And we are, the Hockessin Business Association is taking Fireman Dan, who is a mannequin dressed up as a fireman, and he's going to different businesses so people can get an idea as to what it costs to equip a firefighter. So I don't have a schedule where he is, but I know that he is moving around. And so our businesses and the association will, during that day, also making donations to the cause. And that portion of the proceeds going towards the, I can't speak, I'm not sure which organizations are doing that, or which businesses are doing that. There'll probably be signs in the respective businesses as to what their contribution will be to the fire company, but that is all on Saturday, the 31st, the weekend following Memorial Day.
And Dan, I'm gonna put you on the spot. What's the average cost to outfit a firefighter these days?
Right now, it's running about $7,000.
Wow. Turnout gear, that doesn't include the Scott air packs, right?
Doesn't include the Scott air pack or the radios.
So like I always say, this is my pitch, if you live in the Hockessin area and you call 911, guaranteed they're gonna show up before almost anybody else. And if you're not giving them a nice donation every year from your own individual home and asking your neighborhood to do that, my neighborhood, we always make a donation and the individual homeowners do, you're foolish because that's who's gonna show up when something happens. And I watched them save my neighbor who I, honest to God, thought was gonna die. 45 minutes in, and they hadn't got him back, and they didn't stop. And I'm talking to them, and looking at them, you are one lucky son of a gun. There's other places they would have called it after that long, but he's up and walking and back to work, and I think that was just a little over a month and a half ago. Mind-boggling, just mind-boggling. So kudos to our fire company and all the men and women that serve. All right, old business, new business. Anything we've got? Any questions from folks? Go ahead, Trish.
I think it's time for the Golden Beacon baseball stadium to move somewhere else. I went to go to the library on April the 27th, that was a Sunday, about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I tried to return some books. The baseball players had taken up, them and their opponents and the people who, the spectators, had taken up every space in the library parking lot. I went around 3 or 4 times along with about 5 or 6 other cars that took their space. There weren't any. They were even parked straight up in front of the door along the curb and on places, in places where there wasn't quite a space. And they had taken up all the spaces on Valley Road on the library side. There were still a couple spaces on the other side, but I went home. And then on May the 12th, that was April the 27th, May the 12th, I was going down Valley Road between Old Lancaster Pike and Acme. I had headed for Acme. The parking lot in the library, this was at 5 o'clock on a Monday. The library parking lot was completely full. The parking on the side of Valley Road between Old Lancaster and Evanston Road was completely full, and they were starting to fill in on the other side of Valley Road. When I came back from Acme, not only had they filled everything up on both sides of Valley Road, but they had filled up the soccer parking lot and the grass. And people were walking over toward the baseball field with their chairs. Now, when, what's his name? He came and complained about the baseball.
Dick Saunders.
Dick Saunders. And we sort of poo-pooed him because we figured if they're just going to practice there, it's not bothering anybody. Well, he was right. They're shutting down the library. You can't get anywhere near the library.
Well, the first 2 rows in the library are dedicated to the library, and they should not be parking in there. As far as parking on Valley Road, they have every right to park on Valley Road.
They're not leaving any spaces. And I don't know, how do we contact, this little sign that says you will be towed, how do we contact the county to get these people towed?
5800. Non-emergency number for the 911 dispatch, 302-395-5800. And the county police will come out.
And does the county have a tow truck?
They have a contract, but if they come out and those vehicles are not Hockessin library patrons, and yet, how do you know that the library people aren't inside? They're not parked in
Well,
there.
unless you park somebody there that checks to see, have you got a library card or don't you? I don't think those people with New Jersey tags have got library cards.
And normally it fills up, they're not supposed to be in those first 2 rows. So when Piedmont plays, they do put somebody out there. I'm sure that if Goldie was contacted, that they would make some accommodations to stand somebody out there as a monitor and say, are you here for the baseball game? Then you have to park in those two
But these,
lanes.
but they're, just the players are taking up most of the
Well,
And
library.
the players come in on buses.
They come in on
The
the bus.
players come in on
Remember,
buses.
Newark
And then
Public
they go park
Library is
in
closed.
Montana.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't forget, Newark Public Library is closed, so you're getting UD students possibly coming down. So they could have jersey tags.
on top of that, we're getting, certain nights, we get the Register of Wills that opens his office in the library
Well,
now.
that's right, too. I was wondering what that was the other night. I'm like,
Yeah,
why are there so
because
many
he,
people
he
here?
was always down at Newark, and when they closed, he moved that up here. So there's a variety of things that go on in the library, there's meetings that go on in the library. I mean, I have no control over Goldie Beacom. Goldie Beacom, not only, they're under a contract, and they also do mentoring and do practices with the kids in the Hockessin area. You know, there's a lot more that goes on than just, oh, they're here playing a
I
game.
don't think that the people of Hockessin should be blocked from using their own library.
Well, and I will talk to somebody in our department about calling, Goldie Beacom and seeing if, or I talk to the board and telling them that they should have a monitor in those two spaces. But that was the agreement, is that the two spaces that were for library people. I mean, I have mixed emotions about this, because Dick Saunders came in every other meeting and told us that we shouldn't have Goldie there, we shouldn't have that many kids there, we shouldn't allow kids from over the PA line to play on our,
Well, I know, I understand all of that, but at this point, when every time they decide that they're just gonna shut down the library, they just do, it's not fair.
and I agree for those two lanes, that yes, they should remain open for library patrons. But it depends on what's going on in the library. Right. I mean, if somebody came and said, okay, I have this license number on all of these cards, and they went into the library and said, whose car is this, whose car is this, whose car is this? Unless you do that, you don't know if those people are there for the game, or if they're there because they're in the library for a class or a meeting. I mean, our parks are made to be used, and yes, we have teams that come from other places, but we go other places too.
So
So
this is getting ridiculous when they're taking up
But how many
parking all the way in.
Now,
into the
Valley Road is a public road, and when it was widened, it was set up for public parking all the way down. Nobody's gonna change that unless Del Doc puts up no parking signs.
But they're parking, they're taking up the soccer field parking too.
And maybe there's a deal with them, I don't know, because the soccer field, when they're having tournaments, they're parked all over from Limestone Road all the way up, and every parking lot all the way.
Well,
I mean, I don't know what to say. It's part of living in a community. I mean, I want this community to be used. I want our parks to be used. I want people to feel welcome when they come here. I agree that they should not be blocking you out of the library, but if you take 365 days out of the year, how often does that happen?
I don't know. I'd have to go online maybe and find out what their schedule is.
But normally, you get the people, if they're playing people that live within close proximity, you're gonna get more cars. If you have two colleges playing, you're gonna get more cars, because they're local. But if you get people from Pennsylvania, New Jersey, those people come in on buses. They have one or two buses, and they drop everybody off. Well, they drop everybody off, and they usually go down to Lantana. They go get something to eat, they go shopping, and they come back and pick them up when the game is over.
Sounds to me like the thing would be is have somebody contact Goldie Beacom and say, look, we're requesting you have somebody monitor for those first two rows of parking.
Right, just like we
And
do
make
with,
sure that they're library
Right.
patrons.
just like we do with Piedmont.
And that's
I mean,
really the only option available.
I
with the
agree.
way things are
I
set
agree.
up. So,
Because I'm gonna, I'm gonna tell you that there are businesses in Hockessin who love it when there's games, because people, they may be there for more than one game, they go walk around, they buy food, they shop. So in my mind, that's part of being a community. Sometimes it's not convenient and sometimes it is, but I would hate to see that we're turning people away from our parks.
Okay.
And, there's money that comes through Goldie.
And they did open up more hours at they're open more days now at the library, so there's,
Well, yeah, they were open on Sundays, so I thought, oh, this is a good opportunity to go return my books.
on the weekend, that's when it's busy, all the other stuff.
If you're
happens.
just returning, there's a drop off.
Yeah, but the other day that was completely jammed was a Monday.
Monday evening,
Yeah,
because I don't know when they play, but I would think.
well, the one was, Sunday, April the 27th, and the other was Monday, May the 12th. And I thought Goldie Beacon had already had their graduation, so.
Well, it's possible too, based on the soccer guys' report from last time, that the soccer club partly too, because you said at first man at the seams, so and if you go by there during soccer nights, it's packed to the brim, so.
Well, and they have tournaments too.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Good of the order, any other new business or anything anyone's got coming up that they'd like to let everybody know about? 31st, donations, and the famous cow pie bingo.
12 to 5.
Yeah.
All right, thanks everybody, meeting adjourned, see you next month.
It's in your square. Oh, all the squares.
I like it.